Here we go. Today we're going to look at Acts, and Acts 1 in particular, verses 6 to 14. And this is the ascension of Jesus. And this is how it goes. So when they had come together, they asked him, "Lord, is this the time when you will restore the kingdom of Israel?" He replied, "It is not for you to know the times or periods that the Father has set by his own authority. But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witness in Jerusalem, in all Judea and Samaria, and the ends of the earth." When he said this, as they were watching, he was lifted up, and a cloud took him out of their sight. While he was going, and they were gazing up towards heaven, suddenly two men in white robes stood before them. They said, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking up toward heaven? This Jesus who has been taken up from you into heaven will come in the same way as you saw him go into heaven." When they returned to Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet, which is near Jerusalem, a Sabbath day's journey away, when they entered the city, they went to the room upstairs where they were staying. Peter, John, and James, Andrew and Philip, Thomas, Bartholomew, and Matthew, James, son of Alphaeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas, son of James. All these were constantly devoting themselves to prayer, together with certain women, including Mary, the mother of Jesus, as well as his brothers. I get to take lots of funerals as part of my job. And when you go through the period of death and mourning, it can be quite an horrific experience. For those of us left behind, we can be left with questions, and we can just be almost numb. And if you're anything like me, the question of now what happens, like once the doors closed and the funeral's taken place, the question of now what? How do I live without this person in my life? How do I live without this person that I valued caring for me? For some of us, that question is quite daunting. How do I live without this person? Because, well, we have to learn new skills. If your wife was a good cook or your husband was a good cook, and then all of a sudden you've got to learn how to cook. I know someone the other day that didn't know how to switch on the oven because, well, that was something that their partner did for 40 years. Could you imagine? 40 years. So you've got to learn new skills when you ask the question, how do I live without that person? And my experience has been that we start to see them in everything. You start to see that person in everything that you do, and there's those moments that sort of hit you there. And so the question again is, how do we live when someone has left us? When someone who we valued, who was an important person in our life, is no longer there? I think the disciples are a little bit in this place. It's in some ways a bit of a funeral for them because Jesus has now left them. And I'm pretty sure it was against their will. It's not what they wanted. It's not how they envisaged things ending. It's not on their terms that Jesus has now left them. And there's a bit of heartache, some disorientation perhaps. We're told they look to the heavens, like Jesus has left and they're looking to the heavens. Where do we go? What do we do? And so they end up going to a room, and they go into this room together. And I wonder if while they're in this room, they're sitting Shiva with each other. Now, for those of you who don't know, Shiva is a Jewish custom that when somebody dies or you've experienced a great loss in someone's death, a community would gather around you. And that community would sit with you for long periods of time. They wouldn't say anything. They would just, be in prayer and fasting, and they would just sit in the midst of the grief. And I wonder if the reason the disciples are with Mary, Jesus' mother, and with each other is because, they're sitting Shiva. How do they live without him? Maybe that's the question they're asking. How do we live without Jesus here? Jesus was their everything. They'd left their jobs. They'd given their lives to it. They'd sacrificed. And I wonder if they're looking at the bread and the wine that's sitting on the table and going, remember that night Jesus was with us and he said, remember me? Remember me? How do we live without him? How do we go on living without this person or without Jesus, who was our inspiration? Now, I know recently I've spoken a lot about my mom, and this is the best analogy I can come up with, is by looking at my own grief and sharing it a little bit. When my mom died, my mom was my everything. My mom was my rock, my confidant, my inspiration, the person that sort of cheered me on. And when she died, it left me empty. It left me just absolutely broken. And the question for me was, how do I live without her? And I remember sitting in the manse in the lounge just one night crying, because Francis would not know his granny. That was why I was crying. And I remember it quite clearly, that the heartbreak had set in, and I was starting to sit Shiva, sitting in the pain of my grief. There was a bit of disorientation. How do I live without it? How do I live without the person that was such a strong rock in my life? And so I can identify with where the disciples are at this moment when Jesus leaves. I can identify with the kind of disorientation, the pain that they are together, their mutual loss. We have a lot of teachers in our congregation, and we're blessed with a lot of teachers. And any teacher who's worth their salt knows that a time will come when they've got to let go, that they can't control everything. They can't control the way that the child will write the exams. Any teacher who's worth their salt knows that there will be a time when they cannot influence, or they cannot teach anymore. And for some students, they need to go on and learn for themselves. For some lessons can only be learnt without a teacher. Another way of thinking of this is, if you're teaching piano, you can teach the scales, you can teach them to practice, you can teach them all of that stuff. But until they perform by themselves, and whatever comes of that, the learning process, it needs you to move away from being teacher and let them do it. And we have, you'll also know that parents are the same. Parents are in some ways just teachers. And you go as a parent teaching everything you know about life to your children. You teach them about what it means to have manners, what it means to say please and thank you. You teach them what it means to work. You teach them what it means to relax. You teach them all the things that you know. You know, sometimes you get it right and sometimes you get it wrong, but as a parent, you're trying to teach. And so you give them everything that you have. But there will come a point one day as a parent where you have to let your children go. You have to let them experience life without you. The lesson, or you as a teacher, need to cease to be a teacher. So what that looks like is that, for some of us, is that our children will go out and you'll watch them and you'll know that they're going to hurt themselves. You know they're doing something that it's not exactly right, but you just sit in the back and you wait, and when it all falls to pieces, you come and pick them up and you help them put the pieces back together again. And there's an incredible learning curve in that. And it's a safety net, having or being a parent in some ways for your children at that stage. But there's another step in that process. There's another step in that process. It's when you pull that safety net away, that some of the lessons that children need to learn actually happen when the parent isn't there to pick up the pieces. When the child has to learn how to pick up the pieces themselves. Because it's in those moments where we are picking up the pieces ourselves that we learn about our true character, isn't it? When we don't have someone that's tapping us on the back that says everything's going to be okay, well, what does affirmation look like in that? What does courage look like when there's no one there to do that for us? And it's in those moments that we discover an inner strength, a depth to who we are. And it's in these moments when there's no safety net, when the parent cannot save the child, that the child is learning lessons about themselves that the parent cannot teach. To be a parent and to give that final lesson is to sometimes get out the way. As hard as it may be, that is part of the process of learning and discovering and teaching, is to actually move away. Totally. And when my mom died, well, my mom was my rock. She fought my corner, left, right, and center. But when she died, I had no one else to pick up the pieces except me. And I'm still picking up the pieces. There was no words of reassurance. There was no telephone call or WhatsApp call where I could just phone her and say, Mom, I just want to hear your voice. I just want to know it's all going to be all right. That net was gone. I was alone. But, I was alone, and I cried that night about Francis not having his granny or knowing his granny. But as I sat there crying, I came to a realization that Francis would know his granny. Not physically, but through the lessons that she taught me. She taught me about compassion, about love, about what it meant to be a good person, about giving everything for your family. So he would learn those lessons through me, because my mom was a teacher. She taught me about life. But he would also know his granny through the lessons that she left me to discover. The lessons about who I was. The lessons about courage and resilience. The lessons that I am learning and the lessons I am still to learn by her moving away. And so the disciples have been taught for years. They've been taught by Jesus for years. They've seen God at work. They've seen it face to face. They know what it looks like. But it's now time for a new lesson. A lesson that Jesus cannot teach them. A lesson that they're about to learn about who they are when no one is there to pick up the pieces. And I wonder if someone like Peter is a great example of this. Because Peter failed. He denied Jesus. But Jesus came back a couple of days later and affirmed Peter, and gave him listen, like a parent does. I've seen things fall apart. I've seen how you've messed up. But don't worry, it's going to be okay. We'll put it back together. And I wonder at this moment if Peter is going to learn what it means to fail, but to forgive yourself. To fail and not have someone pick up the pieces or give you those words of affirmation, but to learn how to forgive yourself. And I think the disciples are going through this new lesson. They're going through a new paradigm shift. And in this moment, they are learning to discover who they are. And this is the beauty of it, is that Jesus cannot teach this lesson if he stays. Cannot. It's a lesson he cannot give if he stays. So, what does this mean for the real world? What does this mean for you and I? Well, I think there are two sides to the letting go. I think everyone has to learn to let go of something. The first one is those who are the teachers in the world. The parents, those who are passing on knowledge to others. You've got to let go sometimes of your students. You've got to let go sometimes of your children. You've got to let go and let them make their own mistakes, discover their own things. You've got to learn to let go. The other thing you've got to learn to do is, I think is that we've got time still. So for some of us, we need to leave good lessons for our children, or for our as the people around us. We need to learn or leave good lessons. But whether we like it or not, death will come knocking on our door. Whether we like it or not, we will have to let go. We will have to. No one gets out of this life alive. But I'm convinced that our death is the ultimate gift that we can give someone. It's the ultimate gift that we can give our children as well. Because it's in that moment that they get to discover who they are. That the safety net gets taken away. So that's the first part. I think as parents or as teachers, we've got to learn to let go. And do so healthily. And the other side of that is that as students, we've also got to learn to let go as well. And by letting go, what I mean is we need to let go and discover the gift that has been left for us by those that have now moved away. The gift of discovering who we are and the gift of discovering how we respond. And I don't mean this callously. I mean it in the sense of when we let go of leaving of a loved one, we don't let go of their memory. They will always be special to us. But it's almost like learning to not rely on them anymore. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do. I'm watching Francis walk at the moment, or learning to walk. It's lovely watching him walk at the moment. But he holds on to things. He gets onto his feet and he stands up. And there's going to have to become a point where Francis lets go of the chair or whatever he's leaning up against and walks. But at the moment, he's so fearful of letting go that walking is so difficult for him. He just cannot let go and walk on his own steam. He has to hold on to something. And part of discovering who we are is to sometimes let go of the people we love, in the sense of that they can't support us anymore. The amount of people that get stuck in a loop that I've encountered that are just struggling to let go of a loved one. And again, I don't mean this callously. I just mean it in the sense of just trying to learn from it. Now, I know personally that some teachers are good teachers and some teachers are bad teachers. Know that. We're not always going to have people that teach us good lessons. And sometimes we've also got to learn to let go of those bad lessons in our lives. We've got to learn to let go of some lessons that we were taught. And so that's another part of the story. Some lessons we don't need to carry with us for the rest of our lives. Some lessons we need to actually just stop right there. We need to let go. So in some ways, the teacher lets go, but also the student lets go. The parent lets go, but also the child lets go. And Ascension for me is about that coming together. The letting go of the student and the teacher. But in that letting go is a gift. And it's a gift that keeps giving. And it's a cycle that keeps going. Because children become parents who then teach their children. And then they have to let go, and then they have to go and let go and let go and let go. The disciples discover that. And in this moment where Jesus lets them go, lets them into the world, the disciples discover who they are. They discover their place in the kingdom of God. They discover that God trusts them. I mean, Jesus has spent his life's work building a kingdom. And in this moment, Jesus is like, okay, now you do it. It's your turn. You take it. I don't know about you, that takes a lot of trust. But Jesus trusts them, and the disciples learn to start trusting themselves. They start learning to make decisions for themselves. They become people who are adults now. And here's the thing. By Jesus letting go and the disciples picking it up, you heard the gospel. It changed the world and it's changed your life. So friends, letting go is really difficult. It's not something we do well. It's not something we necessarily embrace. But may I encourage you to start letting go. And letting go in healthy ways. May I encourage you as people to also let go and learn stuff about yourself. Because this is the gift of Ascension. This is the gift of what it means to be part of the circle of life. I know it's been kind of technical, and I hope that it's somehow spoken into your life and given you hope and a better way, or a way of seeing things in a different light. As always, if you need to chat or you have any questions, please email me. Please pick up the phone and contact me. We're very privileged to have each other. Friends, I leave you with God's blessing, with God's love, and may God always hold you in the palm of his hand. Keep safe.